Chapter 1. The Long Dark. I drive a truck for a living. Not the chrome-polished, CB celebrity kind, just a stained ball cap, a CDL, and debt that shots louder than sleep ever could. Most days are a smear of asphalt and coffee, the diesel's low drone picking the lock on your skull until your thoughts leak out. Last night I was cutting east on I-80, across the salt flats, a landscape so white and flat it feels like someone erased the world with a giant ink eraser and forgot to draw it back. The cab smelled like stale coffee and rubber. The heater pumped dry air that tasted vaguely metallic. The windshield was freckled with the dried ghosts of bugs that died believing in the light. 3:04 a.m., the road a black ribbon unspooling into a sky so sharp with stars it looked brittle. I'd been driving 10 hours straight, eyes burning like I'd sanded them, mind gauzy with gas station caffeine. Out there, night has a temperature. It's the kind that slips between your jacket and your skin and licks the sweat off your back. I thought I'd seen everything America does after midnight. Then something moved. A flicker at the far edge of my high beams, right shoulder just inside the bleach-white flats. My brain filed it as coyote, maybe a deer that had wandered out where nothing grows. I kept my eyes on the paint strap, certainty left white, center broken, right rumble, but the awareness of it clicked on like a refrigerator light. The second time it moved with intent. Tall, loping, graceful in a way that felt wrong in a human way, the way a smooth voice sounds wrong coming out of a broken radio. It matched my speed. I was holding 65. My foot eased off the pedal. Speed bled to 60. The shape kept pace, legs scissoring with effortless, liquid rhythm. My heart knocked 3 quick times as if testing the walls of its cage. I pressed down. The diesel groaned. The speedometer ticked past 70. It stayed with me, precise, parallel, silent. I didn't see a face, just the outline, too tall, too thin, arms that hung too low, a stride that ate the ground without seeming to touch it. A shadow with a skeleton. 5 miles like that. Not minutes, miles. The engine a steady thunder under my feet. The tires whispering, the night holding its breath. When I finally reached for the CB, my hand left a damp print on the mic. Chapter 2, Breaker 19, I said, but it came out a dry whisper. I cleared my throat. It scraped like sand. You got copy eastbound I-80, 100 west of the lake. Static hissed like a snake warming itself on a blacktop. The cab ticked as hot metal cooled under the heater's breath. I pictured everyone else asleep, America dark and turned on its side. Then, a voice, gravel scraped on a plate. Oh, as if it had been awake longer than me. You got a copy, driver. What's your 20? I think I'm seeing something, I said. It's running, next to me. A long pause. The static popped like distant grease. When he came back, the tire had drained out. What was left was all business and a little fear. Son, listen. You see a tall, fast runner out there in the dark? Yes, okay, you've got a pacer. We call them pacers. Now you follow a few rules. Simple rules. You don't break them. Tell me. Rule 1, he said, voice low and steady. Do not take your eyes off the road to stare at it. Keep it in your peripheral. Don't give it full attention. My eyes tried to slide right anyway, like a cart on a rutted floor. I locked them on the dashed white lines slipping under me like vertebrae. Rule 2, do not acknowledge it. No lights, no horn, no talking. You pretend it's a trick of the night. Got it. Rule 3, he said, quieter. The heater fan seemed to hush to hear him. Whatever happens, do not stop your vehicle. Not for a flat, not for smoke, not if your engine spits fire. You keep rolling until dawn. What is it? The question came out of me like steam from a cracked pipe. What does it want? He sighed. It had the weight of the highway in it. It's an escort, kid, but you don't want to go where it's taking you. Eyes on the road, drive east. Pray you got enough fuel to see sun. The channel went empty. Just me and the engine's pulse and the runner pacing me like it knew my next breath. I tightened both hands on the wheel. The vinyl was slick with sweat. The world narrowed to rules and lines. Then my GPS chimed. Chapter 3, the road that isn't the GPS map had been a comfort, clean geometry on a chaotic earth. Now it showed my truck not on I-80 but on a ghost line that angled off into a blank, unlabeled nothing. The speed readout still matched the dash. The compass still said east, but the road on the screen was a rumor. I looked up too fast. The world jumped, and there faint, like someone had breathed a town into a cold mirror, were lice on the horizon. A constellation that belonged on Earth. Sodium orange, varying in height, the shape of convenience stores and churches and somebody's open garage. My mind did inventory. There's nothing here. Flat salt to the edges, 50 miles of nothing in every direction. but the lights were steady, shimmering in the night like heat haze frozen over ice. Beside me, the pacer lifted one long arm. It didn't wave. Indicated a slow, deliberate point at an off-ramp rising out of the dark like a whale surfacing. Hadn't been there a second ago. It wore new asphalt like wet paint. A polite suggestion from a thing that had never needed to be polite. Rule 3 said don't stop. It didn't say don't turn. Something in me leaned toward those lights the way bodies lean toward warmth. But the old voice on the radio had left a bruise. You don't want to go where it's taking you. I kept my hands straight. My palms squeaked on the wheel. We passed the off-ramp, and the air in the cab changed. Not just colder, denser, like somebody had added weight to the oxygen. The hairs along my arms lifted. The runner's movement lost its elegance. Its stride chopped, angry. It pumped its limbs with a stiff, frustrated rhythm like a metronome set too fast. I had disobeyed. Up ahead, LEDs began to flash. Chapter 4, The Roadblock Hazards. Amber blink. A lonely metronome chopping the dark. A sedan sat on the shoulder, hood dark, driver's door yawning open like a mouth mid-warning. The hazard lights pulsed orange across the white flats and the black asphalt, painting and unpainting the world. Beside the car stood another one, a pacer, tall and still as a monument, head turned toward me as if it had been tracking me for miles and finally let me see that it was. My chest cinched. The space between the edge line and the sedan looked too thin for a rig. Rule 1, don't stare. Rule 3, don't stop. I kept the wheel straight. I focused on geometry, the white line, the shoulder gravel, the door edge. My foot hovered over the brake and trembled like it had its own heartbeat. I kept pressure on the accelerator. Any less and I'd stop without meaning to. As I drew even, the urge to look yanked at me. Curiosity is a survival trait until it isn't. I stole a glance. Its face was not a face. Smooth gray skin stretched blank over the architecture where features should be. No eyes, no mouth, just the idea of a head, tilting to follow me as my high beams washed over it. In that bare moment, I felt seen in a way that had nothing to do with eyes. The mirror whistled past the open door with an inch to spare. I swallowed a shout and tasted copper. In the mirror I saw it unfreeze. It stepped from stillness to emotion like a film jump cutting the frame. It loped after me, perfect cadence, joining its partner on my right. Now there were two shadows running and the night felt narrower for it. The radio stayed dead. My own breathing filled the cab short, careful pulls like I didn't want to disturb something in the passenger seat. And then the road stopped behaving. Chapter 5, Lines That Crawl. Fatigue is a sound like someone shaking a bag of nails behind your eyes. The white lane markers started to ripple, then wiggle, then crawl like a nest of pale snakes. The dash vents blew colder, the kind of cold that sits on your sternum. The cab acquired a smell that didn't belong to me. Wet stone, old basement, the breath of a freezer that's been shut too long. I locked my gaze on the horizon's ink seam and refused to blink any longer than necessary. In my periphery, two figures kept perfect time with my life. The ghostly town reappeared and vanished, always just off to my right or up ahead, like a dream you almost remember. Sometimes the lights arranged themselves into a main street. Sometimes they were a cluster of low shapes, as if a carnival had set up just out of season. Every time my chest leaned toward that warmth, something cold pressed two fingers to my throat and said no. The GPS went to hell, roads braided and unbraided, the truck icon surfing gray lines that twisted into Escher shapes, roundabouts sprouted in the desert, dead ends jutted into blankness. The little voice that usually said, recalculating, stayed mercifully silent, like it knew better. For a moment the diesel stuttered one hiccup that sounded like a cough in a church. The oil pressure needle flirted with the idea of bad news. I smelled hot metal and imagined flames painting the hood. Rule 3 said even if it burned. I whispered without meaning to. Don't stop, don't stop. Something knocked the underside of the cab, once, twice, measured, from beneath, where only a road should be. Chapter 6, The Invitation. A green sign loomed out of the dark. Exit 13, a number that didn't exist on this stretch. Beneath it, an arrow, and a smaller placard with the name of the town the GPS refused to print, just a gray rectangle where letters should be. The metal hummed in a wind I didn't feel. The pacers responded to the sign like it was a cue in a script they'd run 1,000 times. The one on the right lifted its arm again, pointing with the patience of a surgeon selecting an instrument. The one on the left angled slightly in, close enough that its shadow fell over my door. Urge to obey came from somewhere below wanting, deeper than hunger or thirst, like a gravity that belonged to them. Every tendon in my hands burned with the effort to keep the wheel straight. The cab lights flickered. The clock reset to 12 o'clock, and then snapped back to 3:40. The radio has thickened into whispers that didn't form words but felt like them. For a heartbeat, the windshield forgot to be glass and became black water. Eyes on the road, I said out loud, like a prayer I didn't remember learning. We shot under the sign. The town slid to my peripheral again, a smear of warm rooms and possible people. The pacers didn't stumble. They adjusted, legs pistoning smoothly, then abruptly, like someone had turned their grace off with a swish, jerked back into that stiff, angry gait that made my teeth ache to watch. Behind my left molar, a deep cold started like a toothache in bone. Up ahead, more lights. Not the town, something else. Chapter 7, the test. Blue and red strobes would have meant salvation. These were white, brilliant, sterile like construction lamps. A work zone appeared out of emptiness, cones, horses, a flashing arrow board forcing the right lane shut. Men in high-vis vests stood too still, shoulders squared like mannequins remembering how to be human. Rule 2, do not acknowledge, one step forward. His vest glared. He held up a palm. The arrow board pointed me left into a channel that narrowed between concrete barriers, a throat just wide enough to swallow a car, not a semi. I should have hit the brake. I should have downshifted, threaded the needle, obeyed the choreography. My foot pressed the accelerator like it belonged there. As I reached them, the men turned their heads in unison. Their faces were not wrong, they were unfinished. Features blurred like clay a sculptor hadn't decided on yet. Mauls a suggestion. Eyes a place where eyes could go. The nearest one opened his nearly mouth, and a sound came out that had the shape of stop, but none of the music. The pacers surged closer, one on each side, hemming me in, their motion a furious metronome. Concrete skimmed the trailer by inches. A cone burst under the right front tire of orange confetti in my mirror. The men didn't flinch. They pivoted, heads tracking me with the same fluid tilt I'd seen on the shoulder. Something in the arrow board flickered. For a frame I saw a different message, a row of bright pixels spelling welcome. The channel spit me back into open interstate. I let out a noise and didn't recognize it as mine. In the mirrors, the work zone was already gone, swallowed by the dark like a dream you try to recount and lose as you reach for it. I didn't stop. Chapter 8, the before time thin. The sky in the east paled by a shade of human I can't name but knows. Dawn is always quiet, but in the flats it's a confession. The here wheezed tired warmth. My breath kept foughting the glass like I'd been running. I thought about the old Vos on the CB, how it had slid into my cab and sat in the passenger seat like a ghost that knew the route. How sure he'd been that I didn't want what they were offering. The pacers kept perfect symmetry, one right, one left. Every few seconds they twitched with that angry stutter, as if being as close to morning made me rage. I didn't know if they were angry at me or at the sun hiding under the horizon like a coin under a cup. The road hummed. The undercarriage knocked once like a last warning or a last attempt. The ghost town lights flickered one final time, closer than ever, warm enough to smell. Fresh coffee scent threaded the cab. A plate clinked. A doorbell chimed with the grocery store's music. Memory tried to stand and greet them. I held it down. The first thin blade of pale cut to black. It felt like warmth coming through a door after a funeral. I blinked, slow and deliberate, at the brightening seam of earth and sky. When I looked back to the sides, they weren't there. Not running away, not peeling off, simply not present, as if someone had erased them and smoothed the cage with a flat palm. For 3 beats I kept expecting them to reassemble from shadow. They didn't. The GPS chimed. My little truck set politely back on that 80s firm geometry. The map was ordinary and offensive in its normalcy. I drove. I didn't cry until the sun was high enough to make the salt throw light back at me like shattered mirrors. Chapter 9, the rule I broke. Salt Lake City was real in the way gravity is real. Trucks, docks, signatures, a forklift chirping in reverse. I delivered cheap furniture into a warehouse that smelled like new particle board and weary men. My hands shook on the paperwork. Nobody noticed. People rarely do. Living are excellent at ignoring hauntings carried in daylight. I quit before noon with a voice that sounded steadier than I felt. The guy at dispatch shrugged like I told him weather. Now I'm in a motel a state away. The AC rattles even when it's off. The bedspread smells like detergent that gave up early. Traffic passes like a slow heartbeat. I keep going over it with the obsessive neatness trauma invites. I obeyed rule 2. I obeyed rule 3. But somewhere between the shoulder and the work zone and the not town, I broke rule 1. I stole that glance beside the sedan. I let it know I saw it. That knowing sis in the room, lights off, TV blown blue, curtains not quite closed. In the glass of the dark window, I catch my reflection. For 1 second too long, it feels like something tall is behind me just out of frame, mashing the small movements I can't help. The old Vos had called it an escort. Escort to where? Maybe the town. Maybe a place that isn't a place, where lanes tighten until you can't lose, faces blur until you can't tell if you ever had one. I don't drive nights anymore, but America is big and full of roads that don't end when the map says they should. I know how magnets work. I know how gravity is patient. There will be another stretch of lonely blacktop, another thin rumor of lights where there should be none, and another set of long legs keeping perfect time with my pulse. They can wait forever.